Hey everybody, it's Perry from Bad Boy again. We're going to get started on Tommy Gibbons guitar today. I've gone ahead and I've cut some wood for it, and these all are going to have to be glued together. This will be the back part of the guitar. This is what you'll see from the back side. As my wife likes to say, we're proud of our back sides. And when this is done, this will stick out, believe me. The woods that you're using are maple, walnut, and that's pretty much it for the main body. Obviously, we are putting this on the top. This will be the top side of the body. This is a spalted maple from Serbia. So what we need to do, and what we will get started doing, is we're going to take all these. I have to run them through the planer a little bit, clean them up, make sure they're nice and smooth. And after we're done with that, then this thing gets all glued together. We glue all these pieces and clamp it, and then let it sit. And then we take and run it through the planer to get it down to the thickness that we want it before we put our top piece on. Because after this is all done, then the top piece will get glued to this, and that will be the start of our body. As you can see, here's our template that we made for Tommy's guitar. There we go. Kind of gives you an idea how it's going to lay out to the whole thing. So that will be the back side. When you look at it, this will be the whole back side of the guitar, and it's really pretty when it's finished out. So I'm going to get started gluing this and get it up into the clamps, and then we'll go on to the next step and show you guys some more. As far as the thicknesses go, this is 1 inch. This is 1 3/4 inches. So, I mean, you can make them any thicknesses you want if you want to do this. Once again, I wouldn't start out building a new build this way. I would do 2 pieces and do a solid body for your first guitar. Maybe after you get really good at it, maybe you might want to think about doing this, but this can get quite costly too because of the different woods you're using. I use a lot of exotic woods from all over the world, Africa, Mexico, you name it. I get Serbia, everything. So that's the thing, and the wood does get quite costly, so that's another thing to think about. If you're going to do a first guitar on a first build. Obviously, once again, this is going to be a 7-string guitar, so we'll get into that later on in the show. So stick around with us, and there'll be more to come. Thanks. Hi, we're back in the shop again. Everything, as you can see, is kind of set up here to glue this bodies together. And this is what I use to glue. I use Tape Bond 3. It's really good glue. It sets up really good. It's a really good bonding glue. We're going to, like I say, glue all these together, and then we'll clamp them down and we'll let them sit. I usually let them sit overnight. And then tomorrow we will run it through the planer, get it down some, and then we're going to glue the top on. While we're talking here, I had a couple people ask me about what I use in the shop, what I've got for tools, that kind of thing. I've got quite a few tools here. I use Jet for a lot of my tools. This just happens to be the planer, and I've got a Jet tabletop saw. Obviously, this is a Jet scroll. This is how I work out all the curves and everything else. And This thing works great. It's tube sander. This saw here I use for doing all my fretboards. That's how I put the slots in. You can get these blades from Stumac, and if you look down in here, you'll see I made a little thing. It's a little pin that drops the template in, and then you can just move the template over and it'll keep the slots right on. Drum sander. This is a great thing to have in the shop. This thing does fine sanding, and you can do a wide run on it. You don't need one of these, obviously, but for what I do, and I do a lot of sanding and stuff, it really helps out. So I use something like that. Also, I have two different bandsaws. These bandsaws are great. I use this one for a resaw, a recut. I can set this fence up and I can do recuts, and I can do book match tops if I want to, and this thing will open up pretty wide to do that. I use this one here is the one I use. It's got a smaller blade on it, but this is one I use to pretty much cut the bodies out with, because I can set speed on it, and it really works well. So it's made by Shop Fox, and these machines aren't cheap, especially when you get into the Grizzly models. These are all industrial grade, so that's another thing I use. This is a joiner. This is a big joiner. I mean, this thing's got some serious area on it. It's a real wide joiner. I think it goes up to 8 inches, something like that. But this is also made by Grizzly. My joiner and my planers all have scroll type blades on it, as you can see. All these are individual blades that you can take out and change or whatever. It's a better blade than a straight blade, and the reason that is so that it doesn't chip the wood as much when it's planing. So it's a lot nicer that way. This is the sander. I took and laid it down. It's a lay down sander, and everybody always asks me about this. This is to put a radius on a fretboard. You can set this and actually put your radius, rather than do them by hand so much. You can get the radius. I usually start the radius on this and then finish it by hand. So that's something that's really proved to be a really useful tool in the shop. Also, I use this a lot when we're doing the nuts. All the nuts and stuff on the guitar all have to be shaped, and this little machine works well. So, and here's the ones I use to put in and do all the edging on the guitars, all the curbs. If I want to do a curb, mount it down in here. I can run my piece of wood around on there that'll lay my curbs in. Or if I'm doing a slot for the truss rod, I can set my fence, change the bit out, and I can run my slot for my truss rod. I made this machine, and it works well, and it works very, very well. So that's just some of the tools that are here in the shop. If you're getting ready to be a guitar builder or whatever, there's a lot of tools to this, and quite expensive, might I say. There's a lot of hand tools, which we will get into later. I mean, I got chop saws. Here's my buffer. The buffer is a machine that we use a lot here, obviously, because of our finishes. So there's a lot of stuff that goes along with this. And if you're getting into it and you're just doing a one-time build or something like that, don't go out and try to buy all these tools, because the tools will cost you way more than going out and buying a brand new guitar will. That's for sure. But if you're insistent and all that, that's just some of the tools I have, and they all work quite well for me. So, not saying you have to get industrial grade band saws and all that stuff, but because I do all that stuff, all this stuff all the time, that's what I use. So we'll get back after we get this thing glued up and clamped. We'll go on to our next stage, and I hope I answered some questions that were asking me about the tools. Thanks. Well, we're back in the shop here, and we've got this wood all clamped up. It's all done, it's dry. What we need to do now is we're going to plane it. So we're going to fire up the planer here and get this thing in the planer. And get it planed out. As you can see, it's all planed, or it's all put together. So let's get it in the planer, and we'll run it down a little bit. So hang in there with me, and we'll go to the next step. Okay, I do want to remind everybody, please, if you're going to be using any kind of machinery or anything like that, please don't forget your eyewear. That's a must. Please don't forget that. We're going to plane this thing down now. I'm going to get one side and get it out smooth, and I'll flip it over. The opposite side needs to have a little bit more taken off. Once we do that, then we're going to be ready to glue our top piece on it. So bear with me, this will be a little noisy, but I think you guys will get the idea. As I go, I take a little bit more off each time, so I get down to where I want. That's going to be the back of the guitar. So this whole thing now, we want to mark center so that when we put our top pieces on, that everything works off the center. Anything on this guitar works off the center of the guitar. So, and you have to be on that. If you're not on center, obviously when you go to put bridges on and tremolos or anything such as, it's not going to line up right, or even your pickups, and everything's going to be off, and you're not going to be a happy camper. So always remember center. Keep center in mind. So this is how we get this down to this point. So until next time, I will go over. We're going to laminate the top with the spalted maple. and get that going, and then we will probably take more of this off to take it down to the thickness I'm looking for. So until next time, this is Perry, Bad Boy Guitars. We'll talk to you soon. Bye now.